Pryor, you listen to me. I don't care what you do once this thing's over with. You can lay down and die.
When a TV show is truly special, the characters start to feel like family. For millions of people, there was no gentle giant more beloved than Hoss Cartwright, the absolute heart and soul of the legendary series, Bonanza. The man who played him, Dan Blocker, was known for being just as warm and kind in real life. By all accounts, he was one of the good guys, a pillar of decency in the wild world of Hollywood, but what if that public image wasn't the whole story? What if the gentle giant who seemed to love everyone was secretly holding onto some deep-seated resentments against his fellow actors? A shocking rumor has been making the rounds online for years, one that claims exactly that. It suggests that before his tragic and untimely death, Dan Blocker, the man America welcomed into its home every Sunday night, made a secret list. A list of the 5 actors he truly despised. This claim threatens to rewrite the legacy of a TV icon, painting a picture not of a gentle soul, but of a man who held bitter grudges. But is there a shred of truth to it? Did Dan Blocker really have a Hollywood hit list? Today, we're digging into one of classic television's most persistent and unsettling rumors. We're going to sift through the evidence and separate the hard facts from the sensationalist fiction. We'll explore the real relationships that defined Blocker's career and look at the men most often named as the subjects of his supposed hatred. So, stick around as we delve into the life of Dan Blocker, the complex dynamics of the Bonanza set, and the truth behind this explosive claim. The answer is far more complicated and revealing than you might imagine. Before we can even look at the names on this so-called hate list, we have to understand the man himself. Who was Dan Blocker when the cameras stopped rolling? Was he even the kind of person who would make a list like that? The truth about his character gives us some powerful context. First off, Dan Blocker was a Texan, born and raised in a small town with down-to-earth values. He wasn't some child star groomed for the spotlight. He was a college graduate with a master's degree in dramatic arts. He was also a former English and drama teacher. He was a man who understood the value of hard work and education, which gave him a unique perspective on the often frivolous world of entertainment, but maybe the experience that truly shaped him was his time serving in the United States Army during the Korean War. Blocker was an infantry sergeant who saw brutal combat, and it left a permanent mark on him. The horrors he witnessed gave him a deep and lifelong hatred of conflict and violence. This wasn't just a talking point, it was real. In a complete contradiction to the genre that made him famous, Dan Blocker grew to despise guns. He spoke in interviews with genuine passion about his dislike for firearms, a feeling born directly from the trauma of war. He knew what they were capable of in a way very few in Hollywood did. This is a critical piece of the puzzle. The only hatred Dan Blocker ever talked about publicly wasn't for a person, but for the tools of violence. That says a lot about a man who chose peace over conflict. When he finally got to Hollywood, he was already a husband and a father. His priorities were set: his wife, his kids, and his quiet home life. While other actors got swept up in the glitz and glamour, Blocker stayed grounded. He wasn't a guy you'd find at the Hollywood parties. He famously preferred a backyard barbecue to a red carpet premiere. By most accounts, he was a quiet, almost introverted man off camera, a huge contrast to the loud and lovable Hoss Cartwright. His Bonanza co-stars all said the same thing: he was the ultimate professional. He was on time, he knew his lines, and he treated the crew with the same respect he showed his fellow actors. He saw acting as his job, a way to provide a great life for his family, and he was deeply grateful for it. When creative disagreements came up on set, which they always do, Blocker was known for handling them quietly and directly. No screaming matches, no walking off the set, no tell-all interviews. That just wasn't him. So, when you hear a rumor about a secret hate list, you have to weigh it against the evidence of who he really was: a war veteran who hated violence, a family man who dodged the Hollywood circus, and a total professional known for his quiet, gentle nature. The question then becomes, what could possibly push a man like that to hate 5 of his peers? To find that answer, we have to find out where the rumor started. Today, a wild story can spread across the internet in a few hours, losing all context and proof along the way. The rumor of Dan Blocker's hate list is a perfect example of this. When you actually go looking for the source, you don't find it in dusty studio archives, credible biographies, or interviews with his friends. You find it in the murky world of online clickbait. The main sources for this claim are a handful of YouTube videos and articles with titles almost exactly like this one. They're designed for maximum shock value, promising to reveal a dark secret. But they almost always operate without any real facts. Many of them even have disclaimers admitting the content is based on rumor and speculation, not actual history. They're basically old-school tabloid gossip in a new digital wrapper. A deep search of legitimate historical sources comes up with absolutely nothing. Not one reputable biography of Blocker, Lorne Greene, or Michael Landon mentions anything like it. There are no archived interviews where Blocker even hints at this kind of anger. His family has never said a word about it. His closest friends never confirmed it, even after he was gone. In the world of verifiable facts, the list simply doesn't exist. So why won't the rumor die? Because it feeds into a narrative we find irresistible. The idea that behind every squeaky clean image, there's a dark secret. It's a juicy thought. But in this case, it seems to be a complete fabrication, made up to get views by trashing a beloved star's memory. But that's not the end of our story. Just because the list is fake doesn't mean every relationship on set was perfect. 14 years on a high-pressure TV show is a pressure cooker. Tensions flare, egos clash, and professional disagreements are a given. The people who made up these rumors simply took the real, documented friction of a TV set and twisted it into a monstrous story of pure hatred. So, let's treat this as a myth-busting mission. We'll look at the 5 actors most often tied to these rumors and uncover the real story. This is where we stop debunking a fake list and start exploring the real, human drama of life on the Ponderosa. Coming in at number 1 on this made-up list is the name that's always at the top, the co-star whose difficult relationship with the show is legendary. If there was one relationship that could start a rumor like this, it was the one between Dan Blocker and Pernell Roberts, who played the oldest brother, Adam Cartwright. The most extreme version of the story is that Blocker and Roberts couldn't stand each other, and their on-screen brotherhood was a lie covering up a deep, personal hatred. To get this, you have to understand Pernell Roberts. He was a different kind of actor from the rest of the cast. He came from a classical theater background and had a very serious, intellectual approach to his work. He looked down on television, especially westerns. He signed on to Bonanza thinking it would be a show for high-quality, thought-provoking drama. In his mind, he got the exact opposite. He quickly became frustrated with what he saw as the show's simple, formulaic scripts. He felt his character, Adam, was one-dimensional and was very vocal about how unhappy he was. He fought with the writers and producers all the time, pushing for better material. To Roberts, Bonanza became a golden cage, a job that made him rich and famous but cost him his artistic soul. He felt trapped, and everyone on set knew it. Now, think about Dan Blocker's point of view. It could not have been more different. Blocker was a pragmatist. He didn't see Bonanza as a compromise, he saw it as the opportunity of a lifetime. It was a steady, high-paying job that let him give his wife and 4 kids an incredible life. He was a huge star, loved by millions, and he was grateful for the show's success. He didn't share Roberts' artistic angst. To Blocker, it was a western, and a wildly successful one. His job was to show up and be the best Hoss Cartwright he could be, and that was the real conflict. It wasn't a personality clash, but a fundamental clash of philosophies. On one side was Pernell Roberts, the artist, miserable in what he saw as a creative wasteland. On the other was Dan Blocker, the professional, thankful for his job and committed to doing it well. So, did this turn into pure hatred? The evidence says no. While other cast members, like Michael Landon, were openly annoyed by Robert's constant complaints. Blocker was more reserved. He was a guy who avoided confrontation. The tension was real, but it came from professional frustration, not personal hatred. They were just two very different guys who had to work together. They didn't see eye to eye on their job. When Pernell Roberts finally left the show after 6 seasons, it was mostly a relief for the production. But there are no credible stories of Dan Blocker celebrating his exit or bad-mouthing him. The utter hatred narrative is a wild exaggeration. The reality was much more boring. It was just two colleagues with incompatible views about their work. The friction was real, but the hatred is pure fiction. The second spot on this phantom hate list isn't one person, but a type of person a guy like Dan Blocker would have surely disliked: the arrogant, unprofessional guest star. You have to remember what a show like Bonanza was like behind the scenes. It was a well-oiled machine, cranking out an episode a week for nearly 15 years. The main cast, Lorne Greene, Dan Blocker, Michael Landon, and Pernell Roberts for a while, was the foundation of that machine. They had a rhythm and a shared sense of professionalism that kept the whole thing running. They were a family, not just on the screen, but in the trenches of making television. Into this stable world, a new guest star would walk in every single week. Over 14 seasons, Bonanza had hundreds of guest actors, from future legends like James Coburn and Jodie Foster to veteran character actors. The vast majority were professionals who knew their job and respected the set, but with that many people, you're bound to get a few bad apples. Hollywood in the 60s was full of actors who let the fame go to their heads. It's almost guaranteed that the Bonanza set had its share of guest stars who were demanding, unprepared, or just plain rude to the crew. This is where Dan Blocker's character is key. As we've established, he was a grounded, no-nonsense guy. He had served in a war. He had been a teacher. He had very little patience for big egos and manufactured drama. You can easily imagine a man like Blocker, who valued hard work and respect, taking a quiet but firm dislike to a coworker who was unprofessional. The rumors often play on this, painting a picture of Blocker silently fuming at some arrogant guest star. The problem is, it's all speculation. While he almost certainly worked with actors he didn't like, his well-known professionalism meant these feelings never turned into public fights or long-held grudges. There are no credible, named stories of Blocker blowing up at a specific guest star. If he didn't like someone's attitude, he likely handled it his way. Quietly, privately, and by focusing on the work. He was there to do a job, and he wouldn't let one person's ego get in the way. So, this one is based on a logical guess about Blocker's character, but it has zero factual evidence. Sure, Dan Blocker probably got annoyed with certain coworkers. We all do. But to say he hated them and put them on a list is a leap into pure fantasy. If you're finding this trip through Hollywood's hidden history as fascinating as we do, take a second to subscribe and hit that notification bell. We're committed to separating fact from fiction, and you won't want to miss what's next. We have 3 more names to investigate, including 2 of his closest on-screen family members, and the truth behind those relationships might be the most surprising of all. Of all the names to possibly link to a Dan Blocker hate list, the most shocking has to be his on-screen little brother, Michael Landon. Their chemistry as Hoss and Little Joe was the heart of Bonanza. Their brotherly bond, a mix of playful fighting and deep affection, was what made the show work. The idea that this was all a front for real-life hatred seems impossible to believe. And yet, the rumor is out there. It pops up in discussions about the show's later years, and it goes like this: as Bonanza went on, Michael Landon became a dominant force on the show. He started writing scripts and then directing episodes. The rumor suggests that this power shift created friction with the other stars, including Dan Blocker. Did the gentle giant resent taking direction from the kid who played his little brother? To figure this out, you have to look at how Michael Landon changed. He was undeniably ambitious and incredibly talented. His creative energy was a huge part of why Bonanza stayed so popular for so long. As he took on more power, he naturally had more say in the stories, the dialogue, and how scenes were performed. It's completely believable that this led to moments of professional disagreement. Dan Blocker was a veteran actor who had played Hoss Cartwright for over a decade. He knew that character inside and out. It would be totally normal for him to question a line Landon wrote or suggest a different way to play a scene Landon was directing. But that's not hatred, that's a healthy, creative collaboration. All the evidence points to their relationship being exactly what you saw on screen, one of deep, brotherly love, with the occasional normal squabble. They were legendary for the pranks they pulled on set, constantly trying to one-up each other to break the boredom and make Lorne Greene laugh. Their shared sense of humor was a huge part of the set's atmosphere. More importantly, every account from friends and family points to a genuine bond. When Dan Blocker died suddenly in 1972, Michael Landon was reportedly devastated. He didn't just lose a co-star, he lost a brother. He was the one who wrote Blocker's death into the show in the landmark episode, Forever. Landon's direction and writing in that episode are filled with a real, painful sense of grief and love. It was a tribute to Hoss and a raw eulogy for his friend, Dan. These are not the actions of a man who was hated by his colleague. The idea of hatred between Dan Blocker and Michael Landon is just a gross misreading of a normal, evolving friendship between two creative people. They were brothers, on screen and off. The thought that Blocker would put Landon on a list of his most hated people isn't just baseless, it goes against everything we know about their friendship. In the world of 1960s TV, the two heavyweight champions were the Westerns, and for years, the two titans fighting for the top rating spot were NBC's Bonanza and CBS's Gunsmoke. This brings us to the fourth name on the Phantom list, not a specific person, but a symbol of the competition, a rival like James Arness, the star of Gunsmoke. The theory here is all about professional jealousy. Bonanza and Gunsmoke were in a fierce, decade-long battle for number one. The media often framed it as a showdown. The colorful, family-focused Cartwrights versus the gritty, tough world of Dodge City. The rumor suggests this professional rivalry must have turned into personal hatred between the actors. Did Dan Blocker, loyal to his show, secretly hate the actors on the show that was always threatening their top spot? This is a dramatic idea, but it completely misunderstands actors and especially Dan Blocker. While the networks were definitely competitive, the actors themselves often felt a sense of camaraderie. They were all part of the same unique club of TV Western stars, putting in the same long hours on the same dusty sets. There is zero evidence that Dan Blocker had any personal beef with James Arness or anyone from the Gunsmoke cast. In fact, the opposite is more likely. The world of Hollywood actors was small. People frequently guest-starred on both Bonanza and Gunsmoke, moving between the sets and making friends across network lines. Besides, this kind of petty jealousy runs completely counter to everything we know about Dan Blocker's personality. He was a man who famously avoided Hollywood drama, not someone who would get worked up over a ratings war. He was focused on his own show and his family. The idea of him sitting at home, fuming with hatred for the cast of another popular show, is just absurd. The rivalry was between CBS and NBC, not between Matt Dillon and Hoss Cartwright. The actors were professionals who likely respected each other's success. This claim is pure speculation, born from a total misreading of Dan Blocker's character. His hatred was reserved for real-world violence, not for a fictional TV sheriff on another channel. We've now arrived at the final name on this supposed hate list, and it's by far the most ridiculous and unthinkable of all: Lorne Greene, the man who played his beloved father, Ben Cartwright. The very idea is shocking. The father-son relationship between Ben and Hoss was the emotional anchor of Bonanza. To suggest this was all a lie masking secret resentment is the ultimate test of this rumor's credibility. So where could such an outlandish claim even come from? The whispers are thin, but they usually point to jealousy over status. Lorne Greene was the top-billed star, the patriarch, number one on the call sheet. The rumor suggests that maybe Blocker, a massive fan favorite himself, grew to resent being in Greene's shadow. this theory completely falls apart when you look at the evidence. Every single credible account from cast, crew, and family describes the relationship between Lorne Greene and Dan Blocker as one of genuine love and deep respect. Greene, who was only 13 years older than Blocker, really did become a father figure to his younger co-stars, especially Blocker and Michael Landon. He was a mentor and a friend, their bond was not an act. They were close friends who shared a similar work ethic and a deep gratitude for the show that had changed their lives. But the most powerful proof of their true feelings came after Dan Blocker's tragic death. Lorne Greene was shattered by the loss. He truly saw Blocker as a son. The grief was real and profound. Michael Landon later remembered that in the season after Blocker died, there were scenes where he and Greene would just break down in tears, overwhelmed by the absence of the man who was supposed to be standing there with them. For years afterward, Greene could barely talk about Blocker in interviews without his voice cracking with emotion. This is the undeniable truth. Theirs was a bond forged over years of work and sealed with genuine love. The suggestion that Dan Blocker secretly hated Lorne Greene is not just false, it's an insult to the memory of both men and the beautiful friendship they had. It's the final nail in the coffin of the hate list rumor. So let's go back to the original question. Before he died, did Dan Blocker name the 5 actors he hated most? After looking at all the evidence, the answer is a clear, definitive no. The hate list is a myth. It's a piece of baseless internet gossip designed to tarnish the legacy of a good man for clicks. It has no basis in fact and is completely contradicted by who Dan Blocker really was. What we found was that the relationships used as proof were just normal and human. The friction with Pernell Roberts wasn't a personal feud, it was a professional disagreement. The supposed tension with Michael Landon was just a misreading of a close, collaborative friendship. And the idea of him hating a rival actor or his on-screen dad, Lorne Greene, is pure fantasy. The real Dan Blocker wasn't a man who kept enemies. He was a war veteran who learned to hate conflict, a devoted family man who chose privacy over fame, and a true professional respected for his kindness. The gentle giant that millions fell in love with as Hoss Cartwright was, by every credible account, a true reflection of the man himself. In the end, the truth is far more inspiring than the rumor. Dan Blocker's story isn't a secret tale of darkness, but a testament to a man who navigated the treacherous waters of Hollywood without losing his decency, his humility, or his heart. Which of these debunked rumors surprised you the most? Or do you remember Dan Blocker for the gentle giant he truly was? Let us know your memories in the comments below. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into classic Hollywood. For more videos that separate fact from fiction and honor the true stories of your favorite stars, don't forget to subscribe and check out our next video, popping up on your screen right now.